Flamborough Hills Golf Club is made up of 3 different 9-hole courses. I am playing Hills, accidentally dressed up as one of my favorite characters. In today's video, we're going to look at the little things that make a big difference between breaking 85 and breaking 80. For example, even though I have not hit my driver well recently, I decided to still use it on the first tee. Pulling it straight into the tree line. On the opening tee, you should always be playing something that you know will find the fairway. In my case, I should have just used a 5-wood, laid up much shorter than I was attempting to get to, because now my second shot clips a branch, my third shot is out of the rough, and that means I end up just to the right side of the green, and I'm trying to now chip and putt just to save a bogey. And if you are an average golfer like myself, this is exactly how you do not want the opening hole to go. It is very difficult to stay in a positive mindset when you're already struggling with every single shot on the opening hole. But thankfully, I make a very clutch putt, and I do save a bogey. The next hole is a par 5, so unfortunately with my driver back in hand, I'm not flooded with positive vibes. I'm still thinking about that opening tee shot, and that leads to an unfortunate result. The big top might be great for a circus, but it is certainly not what you want on the golf course. That means I'm only about 70 yards away from where I just hit a shot, so this second one is a 5-wood that I'm trying to find the fairway, and I hit a pretty decent strike, but it ends up straight on a line, still in the rough. This third shot is attempting to get to the green from about 180 yards away, but a little bit of a fat hit, and it's just short. This is the second straight hole where it seems like I am just fighting my swing. So at this point, even though it's not ideal, I'm actually just trying to play for a bogey. It's a really hard look for me to get close to this pin because of where I'm positioned, so I'm trying to get on the green and 2-putt. I do a really good job with that pitch on. I've left myself about 15 or so feet here. I have a pretty decent line on this putt, but unfortunately you'll see I absolutely push that thing off to the left, so it does not break towards the hole. And instead of just leaving myself a little tap in for the bogey, I'm about 2.5 feet away here. I give it a quick look though, because this should not be hard at all. And I missed it. That is atrocious. So that leaves me with a very disappointing double bogey, and then I decide to drop some absolute obvious knowledge on you. This is what we would call a rough start to a round. Definitely don't want a 3-putt. Certainly don't want to do it on a par 5. It's okay. This is how we shake it off. Let's try and get back. So if you're keeping track, 2 of the surefire ways to not break 80 is by hitting clubs you aren't confident with off the tee and by 3-putting. Thankfully the next hole is a par 3, so it forces me to keep my driver in my bag. But I make a mistake here and I don't club up enough, so I end up being short left, and I really leave myself a challenging approach here because I did not notice that that pin was right at the front. So although I'm on the green, I leave myself a long downhill putt to try and save par. And fortunately that putt drops, so I am +3 through 3, but this is a really good reminder about when you are approaching greens, you want to try as best as you can not to leave yourself short-sided. And speaking of doing the best you can, that's exactly what I tried to do with this choke down driver on this 4th hole. I managed to hit a very good shot here. That's the kind of fade that I like to hit with my driver, and I have finally found a fairway, which makes this approach to the green possible, but I pulled it. This means that unfortunately I am almost in the same position that I was last hole. There is a little bit more green to work with here, but I'm still short-sided, and I do not do a great job of pitching this one on, as it rolls well past the hole. One of the reasons I have not broken 80 this year is because my short game has really left me. Normally I'd be able to pitch that close enough that I would feel pretty confident about making the par putt, but I left myself so far away here, I'm just trying to 2-putt for bogey. And while on the course, I was thinking the same thing.
Oh man, my wedge game is off today. And I know for me, if that's a struggle, the entire round is gonna be tough. So hopefully this starts to correct pretty soon. I can deal with errant tee shots. I can deal with topping balls every now and again. I usually find my wedge game is pretty good at keeping me close to the hole, but today it's not been doing so. So if you have anything about your game that you know, if that aspect of it is off, that the entire game will be tough, comment below. What is your thing that you struggle with?
And as evidence that the most difficult place to play golf is between your ears, my very next shot is a big slice off to the left, and you will notice that I end up in the rough with a very difficult approach to the green here, as I now have a side downhill lie and I'm trying to get it up over these trees. And I end up going through. I did get fortunate that it made it to the other side of the trees, but I don't have a very great lie here, so I could not try to get on there with a 56 or a 60 degree wedge, which means I pulled out my pitching wedge and I just tried to bump and run it up there. And I do a pretty good job because I make it on the green, and I've given myself another chance to at least 2-putt for the bogey. I'm just trying to stop this bleeding. I tap that in, +5 through 5. Thankfully, at hole 6, I get an opportunity to stop overthinking everything, because the group ahead of me has let me play through, so I just step up to the tee, I try to put a confident swing on this driver, and I get that nice little fade back into my swing. I end up in the right rough. But I did forget to hit record on that shot because I was trying not to slow these guys down, so you can see here that I ended up just short of the green, but I putt from the fringe, and oh my goodness, can you believe it, I finally got a par. And it's a great time getting a little bit more confidence in that driver because this next hole is a par 5 that shapes up perfectly for the swing I like to have. There is a nice drive fading a little bit around that corner, and you'll notice that I end up right in the middle of the fairway. And I decided to pull out my 3-wood here because I'm close enough to the green that if I really pure this thing, it might have a chance to bounce up there, but I didn't get the fade on it that I was anticipating, so I end up in the right rough. And I make a big mistake here because I'm on a slightly downhill lie and I pull out my 60 degree wedge. I'm trying to get too cute with this thing, hoping that I can put it really close to the pin and seek a birdie, when all I should be doing on a round where I'm struggling like this is just trying to get anywhere on the green and 2-putt for the par. Because after that flub shot, I have to pull out a really good shot here to even get close enough to try and save the par. So I've complicated things way more than they need to be, from turning a really good tee shot into a fight to save a par here. That's not what you want to do if you're trying to break 80, because as you can see, I missed that putt, and that's a very disappointing bogey. Hole 8 is back to another par 3, and this hole is about 190 yards to the center of the green, and I pull out my 5-iron here, trying to put a nice easy swing to see if I can land at the front of the green, but I pured this thing and it ends up at the back of the green. Not a great time to hit one of the best 5-iron shots of my life. So we can see here that I'm left with another scramble opportunity, and I am still not dialed in with that wedge game. I roll well past the hole and leave myself another challenging attempt to save a par here. One good thing is it is about the same length as the putt I had on the last hole, and I am fortunate enough that I drop this one in. I get a par, and I am now +6 through 8. The 9th hole is another par 5, and you can see that I'm setting my feet up to the right-hand side because, again, I'm just trying to consistently play this fade that has been starting to come back for me. Unfortunately, I left the face a little bit more open on this shot, and I end up in the left rough. But because it is a par 5, I'm not trying to get too aggressive here. I hit a nice 7-iron back out into the fairway, and that leaves me about 130 yards into the green, but this was not a great swing, and I end up pulling it off to the right rough. And again, I have short-sighted myself here, so I have to get really aggressive and try to flop this one on, and I flubbed that shot. What I should have done here is just tried to play to the further right side of that pin, and instead of trying to get close to it, just get anywhere on the green and 2-putt for my bogey. Because now I'm left with a very similar pitch shot to try and get close to the green and save bogey this way. Thankfully, this time I do. I'm able to keep it close enough that I can tap in for that bogey. I am +7 through 9, but I really made those 9 holes look much harder than they are. And as you take a look at the scorecard, one of the things that should stand out as a very obvious mistake is that I played the 3 par 5s at +4. At worst, I should have only played them at +1, and then I would have had a much better chance to break 80. The 10th hole begins with another par 5, and I absolutely top this tee shot, setting myself up for a very challenging approach again. I have to muscle this 5-wood out of the rough, puts me into the fairway, and I 4-iron that thing up to the fairway corner, and now I have a look at the green. So already I'm just trying to get on the green and 2-putt for another bogey on a par 5, which is not great, but I'm trying to just make sure it is no worse. So although I started this day by trying to break 80, now my goal is just to break 85, because that will ensure that my back 9 ends up being better than my front 9. And I start off alright here by lagging that putt up much closer to make a very easy tap-in bogey. The next hole is a par 3, and I'm clubbing up here because I've learned from the front 9 that I would rather miss a little bit longer than shorter. Unfortunately, this miss long is not great because I'm on a very steep hill here, and I'm just putting that thing barely past the fringe and letting it roll all the way down the hill. And as I give it some encouragement, it almost goes in, but that's a really great putt and another tap in. That's a good par. The 12th hole is a par 4, which I bring out the driver, set up to the right, let it fade off to the left. It goes a little bit further than I anticipated, and I end up in the left rough, but it's actually not very difficult over there. And my goal for this back 9 is just to try to get to the middle of the greens as much as possible, because I've been trying to pin seek too much on the front, mostly out of necessity for scrambling, and I do a good job getting to the middle there. Another nice lag putt, a tap-in par. And you can see on the next hole view here that there is water about 260 yards from the tee, so I decided to just dial back and use my 3-wood, and I put a really nice swing on here. It draws in towards the middle, and I've set myself up with about 135 yards to the green, but unfortunately this was another shot that I missed recording, and I ended up just short of the green. You can see that pitch on attempt was absolutely atrocious, so I have left myself a really long distance to try and save a par putt here, and it misses a little bit off to the right. So this should be a nice easy tap in for a bogey. And I miss it. Oh my goodness.
Laugh it off. Laugh it off.
And as I try to stay positive, maybe the golf gods have a sense of humor, because this next shot is hilariously awful. I did my best with the tracer here to highlight what it looked like, but I thinned that shot and it ended up kicking right and rolling towards the green.
Thin it to win it, baby. If you're still watching this video, thank you so much. Click that like button. Click subscribe. I'm grinding it out here. I need some positive vibes.
And whether or not you did click like and or subscribe, I putted anyway, because I did not have this uploaded at the time I said that. And it's another really nice lag putt, and I tap in for the par. That was a terrible tee shot, but heck, I'm having a pretty decent back 9 at this point. This 15th hole might be the cleanest hole that I played all day. You can see that my opening drive here is a nice little fade to the middle of the fairway. I don't even try to go at the pin here, I just decide to aim at the middle of the green, and for the first time all day I hit exactly on my line. So I'm in the middle here, I have a chance to putt for the birdie, which has been very rare if at all today. Just missed that and tap in par. That is the easiest that I can make golf look. So with 3 holes to go, I'm trying to end with some really good momentum here, as I'm clearly making some improvements from the front 9, which is very important. I try that fade again with the driver, it goes a little bit more left than I anticipated, and I think when I was over this ball, I thought that it was on more of a hill than it actually is, because I'm aiming left, thinking that it's going to kick a bit more right, and you can see I've got some shock in my system, because it just basically stays straight on the line that I had. And although I've done a good job avoiding it on this back 9, I'm quite short-sighted here, and I'm pitching on out of the rough, and I finally hit a really good 60-degree shot that leaves myself a chance to tap in for the par, and boom goes the dynamite.
Well, that's the kind of wedge shot that I need. It's not perfect, it doesn't have to be perfect, but just leaving it within a couple feet, give me a chance to save the putt. Gotta find that more consistently in my game. All right, final 2 holes. Let's finish strong here.
So hopefully what you're noticing on this back 9 is that I'm having a combination of decent shots that are under control and also the ability to scramble. And I'm going to need that ability to scramble again here as I spray this tee shot off to the left, and there's another gap that I'm trying to clear from these trees. Let's see if I can get over them this time. Nah, I'll just go straight through again. I've been very lucky a couple of times now, and this one actually ends up just onto the right side of the fairway, and I have a really good approach towards the green here. And thankfully this is a par 5, so you can see my ball just end up a little bit past the hole here, which means I have a chance to putt for the birdie, and this is right on line, and it just hits the brakes at the end. That ends up being a really nice par save, and it takes me with some momentum into the final hole. But remember, momentum is not really a thing, and you need to be focused on every shot you take in the game of golf. I do not have a very good tee shot here, and I now have to hit a 5-wood out of the rough, and I accidentally hit this thing absolutely perfectly. It hits the fairway and rolls up onto the green, so somehow I still managed to hit this green in regulation. There's a chance to 2-putt for the par here, but I end up sending this thing well past the hole, and you'll see that the pacing was not the only thing I struggled with. And with the cup back into the hole, I'm trying to make a par here because it would be a really nice way to finish, but unfortunately I just missed that one off and I have to tap in for the bogey. So after shooting 40 on the back 9, that is 84 on the day, and hopefully you've been able to learn some things from this so that next time you try and break 80, you cannot make some of the same mistakes that I did. Thanks for watching, see you next time.